What's up, how y'all doing? It's Jared, and this is a knife that actually slipped past me this year. This is a Buck 101 fixed blade hunter. It's the fixed blade model of their Buck 110 folding hunter. This knife originally came out in 1964. Very iconic knife. It's very influential. It's been around for a long time. It's famous, right? A lot of people are familiar with the 110, and I have a feeling that this knife here is kind of a fan service. They've probably got a lot of requests over the years to do a fixed blade version of the 110, so they finally did it. And what they did actually is kind of amusing to me, because you can see here that it's like they took a CAD, they scanned this into a CAD machine, right? And literally just printed out the dimensions for the fixed blade. It is the same dimensions all the way around. If I can actually line this up, you can see it's the same exact shape on the handle. The blade is the exact same, even down to the finger, even down to that little choil cutout, right? Which is interesting because the whole reason this little protrusion is here on the folding knife is to actually work as your blade stop. That's what stops against the spine of the blade. So that they left this whole area the same, right? Which is unnecessary because you can see here this is all rounded. It's all kind of, you know, it's not as squared off as the fixed blade model. And the reason for that is it's finished, right? Is they had to finish it to actually fit it into that mechanism there. This doesn't require any of that finishing. It doesn't require any of that fitting. And so they've left it a little bit rougher and a little bit more square. And I actually kind of like the way it looks aesthetically. I think it looks really good. The wood scales here are, I really like the wood scales from an aesthetic point of view, from like a working point of view, but not necessarily what this knife is designed for. This is a fixed blade hunter, and you can see here that these wood scales, this is like a Madagascar ebony wood, something like that. But the way that they finished it's really nice because there isn't actually like a 1/8 of an inch of clear coat on here, which I do actually appreciate, but the wood is flame open. The wood is open. You can see all of the little gaps and creases of the grains of the wood, and so that's going to allow material, debris, blood, whatever it is to actually get into this knife. So if you're cleaning down an animal, you're probably going to have to take care of these scales just a little bit extra over opposed to something like G10 or, you know, a heavier finished wood, something like this. This doesn't have nearly as many crevices and cavities for material and blood and all that crap to get into. Maybe it does. But it's definitely pretty. I like the way that it looks. It feels good in my hand. The one thing that I don't know whether it's a bad thing or a good thing. The original here, the original 110 balance point is in the middle of the handle, right? And what that leads to is it not feeling like there's any knife actually coming out of my hand. It feels like it's just an excellent balance point. I've got so much control because all of the force, all of the pressure that I'm putting down onto material or whatever it is that I'm cutting, there's no weight of the blade coming down. That's all my pressure, you know, and so I can give a very light contact with the actual belly of the blade. I can touch very, very lightly because all of the weight is counterbalanced in my hand. That's not the case with this knife here. This knife here, the balance point is right there behind the choil. And so when I actually do come down onto material, it does have that forward heavy motion. The blade is coming down and delivering the blade weight as well as any weight that I'm, you know, any pressure that I'm actually delivering. So it doesn't enable me to get as delicate of a cut as the original 110 does. Not as easily anyway. I mean, obviously you can't, but it's not as easy. It's not as intuitive. So it doesn't feel quite as good in the hand for that aspect, but at the same time, some people prefer that little bit of forward weight, and so that's actually going to feel really good. The only reason that that's there is the lack of bolster in the back. The one thing, the biggest gripe that I have with this knife is the fact that they mirror polished the spine. You can see all the way around. It's actually beautifully done. Nice fit and finish all the way around, especially for a $70 knife. This is done really well. I definitely like that. You can see the way that the bolster has been peened in there. And then you come down to this little area here. It's not quite finished as well, but there's the satin finish on the blade. Why are you going to mirror polish the spine and then satin finish the blade? I don't quite understand that. It bugs me a little bit, but it definitely does look really well, and that does work well, I guess. That 420HC takes an excellent edge, takes a screamingly sharp edge very, very easily. It doesn't hold it for the longest period of time, but as far as steels out there that are easy to get a screaming sharp razor edge on, this 420HC is one of my favorites. And that really thin hollow grind on the 110, the 101 here, just does, you know, it gives an excellent cutting profile. It's very thin behind the actual cutting edge, and so you've got a good amount of potential with this actual knife. I mean, you're going to be able to clean game with this. You're going to be able to do whatever you originally do with the 110, and I think that from a design aspect, not taking anything away from the 110 model, just making it a fixed blade. Straight up fixed blade. That's all they did, and that was an excellent idea. I really appreciate that, because they didn't change it up. They didn't try to come up with something new. They were like, they want a fixed blade 110. Let's give them a fixed blade 110, and they did, which is that. I really think that's cool. The sheath is definitely really nice. I like the way that the sheath is executed here. You can see that it's, I did put this rivet in there because it was too big. I didn't like the way it was flapping around to my hip. It was dangling too much, and so I put that rivet in there just to give a little bit more attention, but I like the way that this sheath is done. It came out of the box with a little bit too much retention. I sat there on the couch for like half an hour just pulling this thing in and out of the sheath. You can see there is a little bit of a crack there where it's been deformated, so this definitely wasn't black leather. It has been dyed. You can see that there, but it comes out very nice. It does hold very secure into the sheath, and it's very slim, very sleek, very, you know, I definitely like the way that it looks. It's not obtrusive. The buck symbol isn't too big, but it's still there. It gives a nice aesthetic view. The welt is decently done. It's nicely finished all the way around. It does have a little bit of a drainage hole, not much to speak of. And as the retention itself is formed by that welt, it's just an extended welt actually riding up against the knife itself to give you your retention as well as the squeeze fit from the actual sheath itself. And there's a plastic liner on the inside to help protect from any sort of, you know, canted use of you actually putting the knife in there. So I definitely like the way the sheath is done. I like the knife overall, and it's just something I'm really curious to hear what some of the people who have been around for a really long time, you know, I mean, some of the people who actually got to experience the buck knife in its heyday, when this was still a buck knife, when this was still like a status symbol, you know, it was a very expensive knife when it first came out, and so the buck knife, you know, I would love to hear some of the things that the guys have to say about the buck knives that were originally, about this knife, that were around to see the heyday of the original buck 110. So it's a buck 101 fixed blade hunter. Definitely a cool knife. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with it. Y'all have a good one.